Wonderful to have you with us on the topic of protecting women's sports. So, Selina, we've seen you in the movie. You were a high school athlete. You have now been one of the main leaders of the fight to keep men out of the women's locker room. Paula, we have not seen you before. We've heard from you, but we have not seen you before because you were obscured. You were in shadows in the movie for fear of retribution here. And now the shadows are gone and you're telling us exactly who you are. You are a former UPenn swimmer who swam on the team with that dainty swimmer, William Leah Thomas. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think one of my biggest things was, at that time I was still a student at Penn. You know, obviously you can't go to the university. Like, the university you go to, you can't go and bash them publicly while you're still a student there. I'm a year removed from that now, and I think also there was pressure from my family to do the traditional thing and go, you know, be quiet, sit at your desk, do a corporate job. And it's taken about a year of discussions within my family to realize it's time to come out. So here I am, no shadows.
Did you fear reprisal?
Yeah, I mean, I had already received a lot of backlash internally from people I knew at school, from just speaking out anonymously.
From classmates or from
classmates and teammates and professors also that knew about it as well. Yeah.
Wow. But at this point, cat's out of the bag. You feel you've got to come out and speak up.
Yeah, and I think like people like Selina like obviously inspires me, and I think like you've done so much in the fight and litigation, and it's been wonderful. And I'm also from Connecticut as well, so that does hit a little close to home. And I've known about her story, and just knowing that we need to stand up for other girls. I'm not swimming anymore. I'm never going to compete competitively again, most likely. So it's not about me, and it's about everyone else that needs to be protected. And obviously, she's got a huge part of that fight. She's doing such great things already, and I want to join her.
Selina, I remember when I came across your story years ago, I guess, at this point, and you were running in Connecticut, high school athlete, and you start to have your accolades taken away by men.
Yeah, I had to compete against at least one biological male throughout all 4 years of high school. After a year and a half, one that competed as a man for 3 seasons, decided to switch over to the girls' team and began to dominate in the girls' field. And I never had a fair race when I raced against those two athletes. We knew before we even got into the blocks, before we even got on the bus to get to the meet, that we knew that we were going to come third and beyond, that there was no way that we were going to be able to come in first. And they would be done with the 100-meter dash, chest bumping each other while the rest of us girls were at the 80-meter mark. It was just never a fair contest.
So then what impelled you to bring this to court? I mean, you have in many ways been leading the legal fight on this issue. Why didn't you just sort of say, okay, well, I guess I'll take second place, I guess I'll take third place, I don't want to rock the boat?
So my mother and I actually began fighting it locally. We did it old school with the petition, going around to other people at meets. And once I lost out on qualifying for the New England Championships in the indoor season in 2019, when I was at that meet in 2 other events, I ended up getting all New England honors in those 2 events, so I was forced into the sideline in the 55-meter dash. That was my last straw, and I said that we need to ask for these policies to be restored and let women have their fair chance at sports. And filing the lawsuit was the last resort. We talked to school administrators, legislators, we talked to the CAC. They didn't want to deal with this issue. They shifted around the blame there, and it's just, we had no choice but to file the Title IX complaint and then the lawsuit.
So you didn't rush to court. You tried to pursue these other avenues. Those were shut off to you. So, I mean, you've been following these cases as long as I have. We've got a kind of a conservative court, but the court also seems to be affirming the transgender ideology. How is this going to turn out?
I'm not sure exactly how it's going to turn out, but I'm hoping that we will have a resolution in our favor someday, and that there's some out there that will take a stand to protect women's sports because it's the right thing to do.
So I have a question for you, Selina. So the first year that you had to race against a male, what year was that?
That was 2017, my freshman year of high school.
So I'm curious for you, 2017, that's years before most people really woke up to this issue. So it was a very lonely fight early on. So how did that feel early on when you were struggling against this and hardly anyone was talking about it? And how do you feel the progress has been culturally on this issue?
Well, I warned everyone that this wasn't going to be an isolated incident when I started speaking out in 2018, and now it's appearing in almost every sport at every level internationally. But I'm so glad that there are other girls out there like Paula that have decided to stand up and join me in the fight, because it's going to be much easier to fight this with the more voices that we have.
Paula, the man who swam on your swim team, I think got a lot of national attention because it was just so obvious. It was he's just a big, giant guy. And what was most disturbing about Will Thomas's rise as a student athlete was not even him taking the trophies and him appearing in the leotard or whatever. It was that there was the leotard, as it were. Wow, I'm a sucker for
Call it whatever
fun.
you want.
I was most disturbed by the other girls on the team who had to pretend that it was all okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mentioned this in an interview I did with Matt, but the brainwashing the university put on, like, I honestly give the University of Pennsylvania props. There was a girl on the team who was so upset, crying about it, saying, like, she swam the same events as Leah, and went to go meet with someone in the athletic department and came back from the meeting and was like, we're going to be so supportive. We're going to just spread love. I don't know what went on in that meeting. And there was meetings that they had with the whole team that worked. And I mentioned this also with Matt, that, you know, there was a night after they met with us, and I called my family on the phone and I said, I can't talk about this anymore. I said, I need to be quiet. I need to just, and I literally stayed in my room for 2.5 days without leaving, because I was so scared that, like, someone was going to come up to me and say, how dare you speak about this publicly or anonymously to the media or any way at all. It was just like they did such a great job of instilling fear in everyone.
One of the most disturbing things from the film for me was when you talked about how the university came and met with all the female swimmers, and they offered all of you counseling if you could not bring yourselves to accept Leah Thomas as a woman. So because you're the ones who have a psychological problem in that, not Leah Thomas, it's you. It's gaslighting. You know?
I believed that I had a psychological problem. I got my own therapist, and I, like, tried to talk to a therapist about it. I'm not even kidding.
You're kidding me.
No, well, for a moment, I was like, maybe I'm just not being accepting. Like, I did have this one moment where I was like, maybe I'm missing something here and I need help. Maybe. I did one session and I was like, no, I know that I'm right. I know that this is the truth. And I'm not going to let someone tell me that that's not.
It reminds me
correct.
of that old TV show, The Munsters. I watched it on reruns. I'm not that old. But The Munsters is this family of monsters who are all scary vampires. And there's one beautiful blonde woman, and she thinks she's the ugly one because she doesn't. And it makes me think of you, where you say, I don't think that men are really women, and I don't think women should be forced to compete against men. I guess I'm the crazy one. I guess I'm the hateful one, the irrational one.
Yeah, and this therapist talked me through, like, why people are transgender and, like, what transgenderism is and, like, why it's so important for them to be, you know, transitioning and whatever. And I was like, and again, like, I'm a very loving and caring person, and, like, that, like, when you play on my heartstrings and, like, you tell me something emotional, like, you do get me. And there's a few moments where I was like, oh wow, maybe I'm really in the wrong here. And then it was very brief. It was like 12 hours, and then I was like right back to, this is so unfair and this is not right, and we need to tell the real truth.
I thought it was interesting. Everybody we talked to in the film that was on the other side of this, they all had the same exact argument. They said, no, this isn't really happening. If a, you know, a biological male trans woman wins an event, it's kind of an anomaly. It just happens. They just happen to maybe work harder than the rest of the girl. But really, like, I think Rodrigo, who's the guy from the Transgender Center in Washington, D.C., said this. I think Marcy Bowers said it. They basically discounted the fact that anybody's actually affected by this. There aren't any real victims, and by doing so, they're basically denying biological reality. And you got to see that biological reality probably a little bit too up close than you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Selina has as well. Like, she was showing me some pictures in the green room of some of these athletes that she had to race against. And, you know, let's just say they're very obviously male.
And the establishment that's been pushing this ideology, it's not showing any signs of holding up. I mean, clearly, even just from the courageous work that you are doing, there is a pushback by the people here, but by women and men and all sorts of people. But the elites who are pushing it, they're not letting up. And in certain other countries, I think of America's Top Hat up in Canada, they've gone even further on this ideology. And we have our Canadian friend, Jordan Peterson, coming up to discuss what's going on up there. Thank you both for coming on. Thank you both for fighting this fight when a lot of other cowardly people want to run away from it. You've done a wonderful job of that.